Oh, hard to miss. Okay, because he's very tall. Okay, let's bring up our next guest, probably best known to you guys from Barbarian, but here is Matthew Patrick Davis. I knew this was going to be a problem. Okay. A little bit at least, yeah. If you don't recognize this gentleman, like, wait, who was he in Terrifier? He played the mother.
In Terrifier?
I'm sorry, in Terrifier. In Barbarian. I'm literally like, there's a giant line of people out there for photos for Terrifier. Exactly. So yes, this is our Barbarian friend, the mother. So I know, doing a little digging into your history, well, just how did they find you? How did they land on you to play this creature?
This beautiful woman?
Yes, exactly.
You mean? I've done a handful of like prosthetics things before, and because I'm a tall, skinny freak of nature, sometimes people like to use that for freaky purposes. Hey, fellow
There's another
freak. But also I happen to have the same manager as Doug Jones, who is, Shape of Water fish guy, Hellboy fish guy, and I've always, as soon as I, many moons ago realized who that was, I was like, oh, I could use my tall skinniness for perhaps frightening purposes, and that would be a plate I would like to spin in my career. But then I signed with a manager who represents a lot of comedians, because also I've written a lot of like comedic musicals and songs at the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater, which is a comedy theater in Los Angeles, and we signed together. But he also represents Doug Jones, and I was like, by the way, I would like to do that too. And so there have been a handful of things now where people will come to my manager for Doug, and he'll be unavailable because he works a lot, and then my manager will say, I have a different tall, skinny, physical actor. So that's how I got on a Zoom call with Zach Kreger, the writer-director.
And this is your first feature film as an actor, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And to be handed this, like, it's only a year old, but it's a fairly iconic character already. And the film, we promoted the hell out of it here last year because we played the trailer like 17 times. We gave away passes for it. So I'm guessing if any of you, if you were here last year, you know this movie, but you probably also saw it. And it was a huge hit, like kind of out of the gate, one of these like unexpected things. And I think it's just because it was such a different way of telling a horror story. Certainly didn't think it was going to end with your character at the end. But just tell me, when you read the script or when you read your character, what were your initial reactions? What were the things that kind of hooked you?
Well, yeah, I read the script and I was just like, this is bonkers. This is insane. How am I going to play a large, naked, feral woman? Just logistically, how am I going to do that? And then also, it was funny because on the first Zoom call with Zach, before I got it, he was like, is this even anything you'd want to do, man? And I was like, why? Because prosthetics are uncomfortable? And he's like, no, because you'd be naked, man, ass out. And I was like, but I'm not I'm not going to be naked, But sure enough, this isn't what you asked, but sure enough, I was, if there was a prosthetic on my boobs and on my crotch and on my face, and then the rest was just like paint all over my body, and sure enough, I was ass out. Wow. We went there.
Like in daylight down the street, like not in a set or anything. In a set too, but
on a set too, yeah. Anyways, but what did you ask?
I was just asking about when you first
when I read
described to you, or when you read the script, what was the thing that kind of hooked you about the?
Well, and then also reading every single thing that I was gonna do, I was like, what? I'm gonna like jackhammer someone's head into a wall. I'm gonna rip someone's arm off and beat him to death with it. You know, it just everything was insane, and I had no idea how it was going to happen.
So when you're talking to Zach about what were some of the directions he was giving you, especially in terms of how you said feral, it's a great word for it, how feral to be, how like completely animalistic this character had to be. What were some of the things that you guys worked out in terms of the performance?
After I booked it, the first thing he said was to look up feral children, which is a dark, disturbing rabbit hole that I would not encourage anyone to go down. But it's really looking up real life examples of people that were raised in cages and raised in captivity, and therefore like never develop beyond the age of 2. They're described as like a 2-year-old in a 25-year-old's body now, and it just it broke my heart and opened. It just allowed me to empathize with this character and not just, treat her as a scary monster going rawr, but someone who's a victim of horrific abuse. And so I just love that there was that side of her, that I could really empathize with. As an actor, I loved that. As a person, I was deeply sad because there were sad stories.
On the days you were shooting, were there any specific notes that he gave you about like dialing it back or pushing it out more, or?
Yeah, I think there were. Yeah, I think most of the notes were just like physically. I think like there were some times where I was getting too like spindly or whatever, and it's like maybe a little less of that, just that kind of stuff.
You mentioned the makeup application before. So it wasn't like a full body.
Yeah, it wasn't a
suit,
thing. Right.
So how long on a typical day would you be in makeup?
The first makeup tests were like 5 hours, and then they got it down to a tight 3 hours, and they'd have like 6 people all working on me at the same time, and then it'd be like an hour to get out of it.
As badly as you wanted to get into this type of acting and type of performance, was there any hesitation about playing this particular character just because of the nature of how she ended up this way?
I mean, honestly, like when Zach said naked ass out, that phrase just kind of rang in my head, and I was like, what's going to happen in my crotcheral zone? I didn't immediately go, and then, but to my father's great credit, actually, I called him and told him about that conversation. He's like, I think you got to do it, man. Yeah. So that was nice of him to.
No one promised you it would be glamorous. Yeah.
That's right.
We had Richard Brake here last year,
yeah.
And at the time he couldn't really talk about the movie very much. But at what point, like, what do you guys talk about when you're not, like, when you're just hanging out, like, between shots? Like, is there, because you're all kind of messy in that movie, but like.
Yeah, I mean, we never shot together.
Right.
But
I just meant the whole like cast, like with the people you're working with.
Yeah, we did have an overlap because the same people that did his old age makeup did my makeup, and so there was a moment when he was in the makeup chair and he had just finished, and then I had just finished shooting, and so we got to hang out and kind of talk about prosthetics and talk about our mutual respect for Doug Jones and stuff like that.
At what point did you realize this movie was like hitting with people? Like, at what point did you realize that, like, oh, this is going to become a thing? Like, people are watching this and loving this. Like,
yeah.
It was,
it's hard. I had no objectivity about it. I making it the whole time, and even watching it, I was like, are people going to buy this? That it's a dude in prosthetics, so it wasn't until like the reviews came out, and then I started seeing it in theaters with audiences, that I got to go on the ride with them, and then see response online of people going, wait, Tata Lady's a dude? So that was rewarding, that to know like that was successful,
But you also have to, in a weird way, you have to tap into that motherly instinct that this character, this warped motherly instinct. Tell me about about exploring that side of your brain.
Right. Yeah, I have to give sweet Justin Long his milk.
That's right.
You know? I mean, you see him and you want to feed him.
The nurse.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think like the research about the feral children and the stunted mental growth, I don't know, just it explained a lot of that. Like, and then also too, in the script was this maternity video on a loop, and so I asked Zach. So I figured, okay, she has watched that, forever, and is recreating that in a way. And so I asked Zach, have you shot that yet? What is that going to be? Because however I breastfeed Justin Long is how I want to do it the same way that is in that video. And then from that, he was like, oh, we are shooting that tomorrow. We can incorporate gestures in the video that then you can mimic. And so out of that conversation came things like the boop and like the nose boop and like the little bay at the end. Bay.
Now you're making me sad. This is
Boop.
He'll be doing that at his booth later for anyone who
That's right. Free boops.
Just real quick, there's a microphone right here if you guys want to line up and ask some questions. But the last thing I want to ask is about just a little bit about, because you mentioned you had some musical, like comedy musical background.
Mm-hmm.
You also have written a lot of kids music.
Yeah, I know.
You have theater, musical experience as a performer, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you kind of broached this at the beginning, but like, how did all of that turn into this? Like, how?
It's just like
where's the straight
you just
line?
spin as many plates as possible, and it creates funny juxtapositions. When I was preparing to go to Bulgaria to play a large naked feral murdering woman, I was also writing a kids album of songs about dogs. So I just love that. I love, like, in an artistic career, you can just do a bunch of different things, and there doesn't have to be a through line. I just finished doing a musical down in Springfield, Illinois, playing Abraham Lincoln in a musical about Abraham Lincoln. And the only through line there is both the mother and Abe were shot in the head. Thank you.
I mean,
Thank
you've
you,
been
folks.
I should say, this man's been on Broadway. So, like, this is not like, when we say theater, we're not talking about, like, community theater, although we are, too. But, like, Broadway level stuff.
Heard of it?
Yeah.
All right. But even that was in prosthetics.
Was it?
Yeah, so all my highest profile things, they're like,
oh, yeah, because you
cover that face. We don't want to see that face.
You were in, what was the play?
It was called Sideshow.
Sideshow, and you played, like, the geek. Anyone see Nightmare Alley? Like, he played the geek.
Right, I bit the head off a chicken in the opening number, and it was fun.
As a musical, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, first.